Aston Martin may have just unlocked the upgrade that changes everything. Honda's new power unit is reportedly targeting a gain of around 40 horsepower, with the potential to cut roughly half a second per lap. And after its first track run during a 200-kilometer filming day, the engine is now being prepared for its competitive debut at Zandvoort. But this is not just about more power. Honda has reshaped the combustion chamber, reduced internal friction through changes to the lubrication system, and worked directly on the drivability problems that have frustrated Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. At the same time, Aston Martin has introduced a 16-part chassis upgrade, finally giving the car a stronger foundation. That means the engine and chassis may be improving together at exactly the right moment. There is still one enormous warning. Honda was reportedly more than 100 horsepower behind the leading power units earlier in the season, so even a 40 horsepower jump may not close the entire gap. But if the projected gain appears at Zandvoort, Aston Martin could suddenly find the acceleration, reliability, and lap time it has been missing all year. And the most important part of the story is not the leaked number. It is what that number could do to the entire grid. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this upgrade could become the turning point of Aston Martin's season, you have to begin with the scale of the problem Honda is trying to solve. Earlier in the year, reports suggested Honda's power unit was more than 100 horsepower behind the strongest engines on the grid. That is not a small disadvantage. It affects acceleration out of slow corners. It affects how quickly the car reaches top speed. It affects overtaking, defending, energy use, and even the aerodynamic setup Aston Martin can afford to run. Imagine two runners carrying backpacks. One backpack is almost empty. The other is loaded with heavy books. Both runners can still move. Both can still compete. But every acceleration, every climb, and every attempt to attack becomes more difficult for the person carrying the extra weight. That is the kind of challenge Aston Martin has been facing. The car may enter a corner close to a rival, but lose ground when the driver presses the accelerator. It may produce enough grip through the middle of the turn, yet become vulnerable before the next braking zone. And when that happens repeatedly, the entire race becomes defensive. The driver has to take greater risks to create an opportunity. The strategy team has fewer options. The engineers may be forced to reduce aerodynamic drag, even if doing so removes grip from the corners. That is why the reported 40 horsepower gain matters. It would not erase the entire deficit. Honda's own leadership has warned that there is no single magical step capable of immediately catching the best power units. But a gain of this size could begin changing the choices Aston Martin is able to make. And choices are where this story becomes far more important than one engine number. A stronger power unit could allow the team to run more aerodynamic grip without becoming as slow on the straights. It could help the drivers defend without draining their available electrical energy too early. It could make overtaking attempts less desperate because Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll would have a stronger run toward the braking zone. Most importantly, it could allow Aston Martin to stop designing every decision around one obvious weakness. But here is the first major complication. The 40 horsepower figure does not automatically mean Aston Martin will become 40 horsepower stronger in every moment of every lap. Power delivery changes with engine speed, temperature, energy availability, and the settings selected by the team. The true value of the upgrade depends on where the gain appears. If Honda has improved power at lower engine speeds, the car could accelerate more strongly out of slower corners. If the improvement appears higher in the operating range, Aston Martin may gain more speed near the end of the straights. If the electrical side has become more effective, the drivers may receive stronger or more consistent deployment. The source does not provide a complete breakdown of how every part of the claimed gain is divided. What it does reveal is the direction of Honda's work. The combustion chamber has been changed. That is the area where fuel and air are burned to create power. Honda has also modified the lubrication system to reduce friction. Friction is the resistance created when moving parts work against one another. Think of riding a bicycle with the brakes rubbing against the wheels. You can still pedal, but some of your effort is being wasted. Reduce that resistance, and more of the same effort becomes forward movement. Inside an engine, reducing friction can allow more of the energy created by combustion to become useful performance. Sounds simple? Achieving it inside a Formula 1 power unit is not. Every change must survive extreme heat, violent forces, and thousands of repeated movements. The engine cannot simply become more powerful for one test. It has to remain powerful through practice, qualifying, and the full race. And this is where Honda's first track run becomes so important. The upgraded power unit completed its initial outing during a permitted filming day at the Hungaroring. The session was limited to 200 kilometers and used special demonstration tires. That means it was not a normal race test. The lap times cannot be compared directly with a Grand Prix weekend. The tires behave differently. The running program is controlled, and the team is not facing rivals under competitive conditions. But the filming day still offered something Honda desperately needed: a first opportunity to place the new engine inside the actual Aston Martin chassis and see how the complete machine responded. A power unit can behave one way on a test bench. Once it enters the car, everything changes. The engine is connected to the gearbox. It becomes part of the structure. Its heat affects the bodywork. Its power delivery affects the rear tires. Its vibrations can travel into surrounding components. And its cooling demands influence the aerodynamic shape of the car. That is why Honda's trackside general manager and chief engineer, Shintaro Orihara, described the filming day as a valuable chance to see how the new engine worked inside the chassis. That sentence may sound cautious. In reality, it reveals the central challenge. Honda is not simply building an engine. Honda and Aston Martin are trying to create one complete car. And until the power unit is tested inside that car, nobody can know whether the theoretical gain will become real lap time. This is also why the timing matters. Aston Martin has already introduced a major 16-part chassis package. That upgrade helped the team produce its strongest form of the season in Hungary. Fernando Alonso reached the second qualifying session for the first time all year. He finished 14th. Lance Stroll finished 13th. Those positions did not score points, but the context made them important. Aston Martin had spent much of the season fighting near the back. In Hungary, the team finished ahead of an Alpine, both Haas cars, and both Williams cars. That was not a breakthrough measured in trophies. It was a breakthrough measured in relevance. For the first time, Aston Martin appeared capable of rejoining the fight around it. And now, Honda's upgrade is arriving just as the chassis begins to show signs of life. That combination is the real reason Zandvoort could become so revealing. If the chassis had remained weak, the engine improvement might have been hidden. The car could gain power and still lose too much time in the corners. But if the new aerodynamic package has genuinely improved the platform, Honda's extra performance may finally have somewhere to go. The engine can improve acceleration. The chassis can preserve speed through the corners. And the driver can begin connecting those gains across an entire lap. This is how a Formula One car moves forward. Not through one miracle component, through several improvements arriving at the same time. But that also creates pressure. Honda has chosen to concentrate its resources on one major summer upgrade rather than dividing the work across smaller steps. That makes Zandvoort more than another race. It becomes a test of the development direction. If the engine delivers a projected improvement, Aston Martin could begin closing on the midfield. If it fails to produce clear lap time, the team will have to determine whether the problem sits inside the power unit, the chassis, the integration, or the expectations surrounding the upgrade. And there is another number that raises the stakes. The reported internal estimate placed Aston Martin's engine-related deficit at roughly 1.5 seconds per lap compared with the best power units. Honda is reportedly targeting a reduction of around half a second through the new unit. Half a second may not sound enormous to someone outside Formula One. Inside Formula One, it can separate several cars. It can determine whether a driver escapes the first part of qualifying. It can change whether the car starts near the back or enters the midfield fight. It can turn a distant rival into someone the driver can actually attack. But even that projected gain needs context. A lap time estimate is not a guarantee. The benefit can change from circuit to circuit. A track with longer acceleration zones may expose more of the improvement. A circuit dominated by slow corners and traction may reward smoother power delivery. Another track may place greater emphasis on aerodynamic efficiency. This means Zandvoort will not simply answer whether the engine is stronger. It will begin answering whether Aston Martin can use that strength in a difficult environment. And Zandvoort is difficult. Circuit is narrow. The corners flow quickly into one another. The banking places unusual demands on the car. Track position matters because overtaking is not always easy. That makes qualifying critical. A stronger power unit could help Aston Martin gain speed before the braking zones. But the driver must still trust the rear of the car. The tires must accept the extra force. And the engine must deliver its power smoothly. That final point has been one of the biggest concerns throughout the season. Both Alonso and Stroll have struggled with drivability. Drivability describes how easily and predictably the driver can control the engine's response. A powerful engine that reacts unpredictably can be harder to use than a slightly weaker engine with smooth delivery. Imagine trying to open a door that moves normally for the first few inches, then suddenly flies forward. You have enough strength to control it, but you cannot trust how it will respond. A driver experiences the same uncertainty when power arrives abruptly. The rear tires can lose grip. The car can slide. The driver begins waiting longer before pressing the accelerator fully. That hesitation costs time at the corner exit. And the loss continues all the way down the straight. Honda has therefore focused not only on raw output but also on making the power unit easier to control. That may become the most important part of the entire upgrade. The 40 horsepower figure creates the headline. Better drivability could create the lap time. Because when a driver trusts the engine, they can accelerate earlier. They can make smaller corrections. They can preserve the rear tires. They can repeat the same movement lap after lap. Consistency creates confidence. Confidence creates speed. And speed that can be repeated is far more valuable than one dramatic burst. This is why Fernando Alonso's comments after Hungary carried so much weight. He did not speak as though Honda and Aston Martin were separate groups blaming one another. He described one team. Honda had tried to help compensate for weaknesses in the car earlier in the season. Now, with the chassis improving, Aston Martin could begin helping Honda. That change in language matters. For months, the project looked divided by its problems. The engine lacked performance. The chassis lacked pace. Reliability created doubt. Each weakness made the others look worse. Now, both factories may finally be moving in the same direction. And when two struggling parts begin improving together, the result can be larger than either gain alone. But this is only the beginning. Because the upgraded engine has completed controlled running. It has not yet faced the full pressure of a competitive weekend. It has not fought through traffic. It has not endured an entire Grand Prix at maximum demand. It has not shown whether the projected half-second gain will survive when temperatures rise, tires fade, and rivals force Aston Martin to attack. That proof is still waiting at Zandvoort. And the most important question is no longer whether Honda has found more power. It is whether Aston Martin has finally built a car capable of revealing it.